called On This. Okay, so today is a brilliant day because I'm talking to Gloria Battini, and I was following her on Instagram before I even realized that I'd set up this interview with her. So I'm super excited. So welcome, Gloria. Will you just tell us what your, I don't know, do you have some kind of title? What do you call yourself?
Hello, thank you so much for having me here, first of all. Right, what do I call myself? That is you know what? That is a hard question to answer. So I am a transformational coach, and I do a lot of soul work. So the basis of my work is basically to reconnect people to their authenticity. And it doesn't matter what they come to. Most people, when they come to me, they have either experienced toxic relationships, they experience symptoms of, for example, anxiety, high levels of stress, and perhaps they have an unhealthy relationship with their body or their body image. But it's all, what I found as a common denominator is that everybody who comes and work with me, we find that they have been adopting a way of living that it's actually dictated by outside rules rather than their inner calling, their inner compass. Yeah. And so that's why I say it's soul work, because whenever we dig deeper and we understand what's been going on, whenever the question that I get asked, that I ask them always at the end of a journey is, how do you feel in connection with yourself? And they all say, I feel that now I'm living authentically after we work together. And so that's, you know, there's so many ways in which society and the modern world is sort of like making us detach from ourselves. So I guess I help people reconnect in that
very
way.
Much in the same, you know, in the same way that I do. I try and help people to reconnect themselves through working with the chakras and yoga and meditation, but we'll get on to methods later. What I am really interested in talking to you about today is toxic relationships, because I just don't think I know anybody who's never had a toxic relationship. I certainly have been in them. I have lots of friends who have been in them. And I think there's this kind of circle that I want to go around, which is, you know, first of all, defining, you know, we've all been in a toxic relationship. We all need to recover from that one way or another, and piecing back the selfness, the soul is a big part of that. But you know, go right back to the beginning, you know, what is a toxic relationship? Because I think quite a lot of people are in them without even knowing or realizing. They just kind of think, oh, he's a bit this or they're a bit that, or so first of all, recognizing it, then escaping it, and then the putting ourselves back together again. And that's the bit that obviously is where you work. But I think before we get to that bit, which is the meaty bit, we need to kind of understand what toxic relationships are. And I know from, you know, doing my research about you, you're quite big on narcissistic abuse and trauma. And you know, then that takes us back yet another step, is like, how do people become narcissists? You know, where does that come from, the root of that? So, and we could go for hours, but let's let's start the beginning of, you know, defining what toxic relationships look like to you. And yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, like this is such a huge topic. And it's so, if you want, it's such a broad, you know, toxic relationship, like it's such a broad, you know, term use, you know. And yet again, you said it is so broad because pretty much everybody has experienced them, whether it's an intimate relationship with another person, whether it's family dynamics, you know, sometimes friendships or work relationships, like there's so much going on. But the way I see it is essentially any relationship that demands or expects in some way you not being yourself, you not being able to be yourself. And sometimes it comes because the other person behaves in a certain way, And we'll look, for example, later on at more specifically the narcissist type personality, narcissistic type personality. But sometimes society, you know, sometimes the most narcissistic of it all and the most gaslighting of it all, it's actually society and the way that we're raised, especially as women. You know, there's so much expectation on the way that we should be like, that we sort of like look at outside, okay, so this is how I should be. And then you filter it through your own system to the person that you are, and you find a discrepancy, which is, you know, there's something different from that expectation. And then you automatically get to the conclusion that there's something wrong with you rather than with the system. And that's very much how I strongly believe 90% of us women have, you know, been raised or have grown up with like this like insane concept and expectations. But then obviously that happens, you know, on the for men as well. Like, even though they might are not necessarily born with this concept of women, what they are taught is to behave in a certain way. What they are taught is to, you know, perceive us in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so therefore it creates this huge amount of toxicity, you know, even if it isn't necessarily specific, you know, the narcissistic thing. But I think anything that doesn't allow you to be yourself, and where you don't feel like you are being gloved, or where you feel like you have to do something that's so outside of you, or where you think that you have to put up with certain things because, well, this is the way. It's not the way. It's so not the way, you know? And so I think that this is a definition for me. This is how I see the toxic relationships. Like anything that has an external, you know, rule imposed as to how you should behave, or expectation on how you should behave.
Yeah. I mean, that goes from just sort of thinking like you have to tread on eggshells sometimes. Yeah. Right up to full on sort of, you know, the more obvious abuses, which are obvious. And okay, so that's a very solid and wonderful definition, because in that definition you are giving people the very clear signage, direction that they need to be true to themselves. They need to be honest with themselves. And I feel like quite often it's very easy to lose yourself. I mean, especially when you talk about the societal influences, that you know, you lose yourself in that, and it's really hard to pinpoint. And it takes a lot of work, but strength and courage to break through all of that.
Yeah,
that's relationship or society, whatever you're, you know, whatever it was, and family. That's an even worse one, because there's that whole sense of kind of duty and you should, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into what it looks like to be in a relationship with a narcissist.
Yes, so I really want to say something before we start here, because obviously we're not here to give out any diagnosis. You know, we're not saying, you know, that if you are with somebody that has narcissistic traits, you should get a diagnosis in order to actually establish whether they're narcissistic or not. Okay. Please know that abusive behavior is abusive behavior, whether you have a diagnosis or not. And the narcissistic spectrum is so huge that somebody might not have a diagnosis, but have a very strongly gaslighting behavior, which is really manipulative and really abusive. So, you know, I'm saying this because a lot of us who experience those relationships, we tend to be like, oh, but they're not like that. Like, they're not that much, you know, like, yes, this is maybe not healthy relationship, but it's not that bad. Please know that there isn't good abuse and bad abuse. Like, that's not a thing, right? That isn't a thing. Like, there isn't something that is more tolerable than something else. When somebody is manipulating you and is abusing you, that's it. That's what it is. Whether it's a 1 or a 10, like there's no scale, right? There's just either healthy or not. And I think that's important to know, because a lot of us stay in those relationships because we hope that they're going to change. And that's so far away from the truth. But to get specific on the narcissistic sort of like spectrum and behaviors, a narcissist essentially is somebody who their main trait is the lack of empathy. So they're not able to connect to what another person might be feeling, right? So they don't get that sense. And because that's how they are, they don't think that there's anything wrong with it. So it's a very, very deeply rooted thing. And
where does it come from? Is that something that's sort of instilled as in youth, in childhood, I don't know, where does it come from?
Yeah, so definitely childhood has a huge role to play, because obviously in childhood you learn from your carers, from your parents, or from the people who are responsible for you, and you take on those behaviors, and you're supposed to learn what it's like to be in the world and how you should behave. And if that's the behavior that you see, that's very likely the behavior that you're going to pick up.
So it's kind of like an inherited trait. And is it a sort of a way of, you've learned how to get what you want, how to manipulate people, and you've worked out, or you've obviously had it shown to you as this is the way we treat another. And I do want to say at this point that I think that both men and women can be narcissists. So, let's cover that one off before we go any further. But so yes, it's inherited as learned behavior, and then instilled and tested out on the person who taught it to you, and you see that you get results or reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I have not gone into the scientific research side of things, but I know that there can be some genetics involved as well into this. Because a lot of people that are born, for example, with narcissistic parents actually become the opposite. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are born in that environment, you either, it's a very fine line. You can become exactly the same thing, or there is something within you that says, this is completely wrong, and you go completely the opposite way. Another thing that it's very, common to narcissists is the inflated sense of self. So it's not only that they lack empathy towards other people, but their perception of themselves is huge. It's really big, grandiose gestures and all these sort of things when it comes to themselves. And again, they completely believe it because that's the way that they're wired. Yeah. And for them, it's natural. The majority of people will be like, why would I say such a thing? Or why would I, think that, who am I to say, but for them, it's quite the opposite. For them, it's really quite the opposite. Like, I am the best at everything because I am the best at everything. And that's it. There's just like no question. But what goes on inside there as well is I do believe that the reason why they are like this outside is because internally, the amount of insecurity that they have is huge. But instead of going with the, these are my insecurity, let me work on them, they're like, no, let me wear a mask instead and not show it to anybody else. And we say that you can never actually know a narcissist, and it's completely true because you have no clue which mask they're actually wearing at that point. And it's very difficult. You know, I get asked a lot, like, can a narcissist change? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question, because even if they tell you, yes, I want to seek help and I want to change, are they actually telling you the truth? Or is it
just another mask? Is it just,
yeah,
I'm telling you what you want to hear? It's another manipulation of like, oh, I can change. And we have all heard that, you know, somebody messes up and they go, I'll change, I'll make myself better, I'll be better, I'll be better. And it's very difficult. Well, you know, it's easy to fall for that, really, when there's something you love, you care for, and that, you know, you want the best for them, you want them to be the right person, you want them to be the best version of themselves, because you believe deep down in the little center that they are, you know, they've got there's a good solid gold bit right in the middle there. It's just covered up with a lot of crap over the top of it. And the insecurities thing is a really interesting one, because I think that most people, if they are angry, if they're controlling, if they're, you know, all of these kind of horrible ways of being, the root of it is always, the root of all anger is fear. And it's the root of all of this is the insecurity. You know, I'm not big enough to, you know, I'm not enough in whatever sense to deal with whatever it is. So yeah, I'm just going to get out the big guns and blast you until you submit and I feel better about myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it gets to a certain extent. Obviously here, I want to remind people that we're talking about a huge spectrum, of course, and there's, you know, obviously very different extents of this, but, you know, somebody who is in a relationship with a narcissist in the jargon is called the narcissistic supply, because that's what they need. Because it's literally the supply of having somebody there, of getting that sense of importance for themselves. And then when they don't need it, you're gone. You know, when they stop needing it, that's it. And there's no, until they come back again. Yeah.
No, well, you must rein me in, because, you know, when I start talking about it, it's from personal experience. So it's like getting quite personal. But I understand that, yeah, there is a massive spectrum of, and, you know, and what just before we move on, like, what little red flags would you put out there as the most important ones to look for? I suppose if you're in the beginning parts of a relationship, also if you're in an established relationship, I guess. And yeah, what red flags sort of go across the board that we could talk about that are with, you know, a romantic relationship, a friendship relationship, because even those friendship relationships are like super important to our hearts and our souls and our minds, friends and society, you know, like, so there's a big spectrum of where these things come from. But what red flags might be common amongst all of them, do you think?
Yeah, so at the very beginning of a relationship, regardless of what relationship that is, I would definitely look out for something that's called love bombing. So it's basically, if you are hearing everything that you've always wanted to hear, maybe be a bit skeptical. You know, be a bit skeptical. Like, you know, if within a week they're like, I want to marry you, or we are best friends, or you are the best employee or the best boss I've ever had, or whatever, you know, maybe just be a bit careful with that. And I'm saying be careful because there are some people who are genuinely like very excited about life, and that's genuinely the reaction that they would have. But a lot of the time, you know, the majority of us, you know, it takes time to build a relationship. It takes time to, you know, call somebody your best friend, and it takes time to say to somebody, you know, I think I want to spend my life with you. And, you know, unless you have gone through a very specific life journey that has put you in a place where you're able to see something very soon because of life experiences that you've had, that's one thing. But if it's just all happening too soon, big gifts after a week or something like this, be a bit skeptical, be a bit careful, make sure that you are seeing everything and make sure that you're giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. And most of all, also trust your intuition, because sometimes if it feels, is it too good to be true, or is there something else there? Because a lot of the time you can tell whether somebody is genuine or not in their behaviors and in the way that they do this. So maybe, give yourself that little bit of a time. For sure. If you are in an established relationship, the best piece of advice I can give you in terms of red flags and what to look out for, I want you to observe this very carefully. So, it's not the easiest thing to do, but I would like you to take a step back and look at your relationship as if you were somebody from the outside. Because a narcissist operates in a very, very specific way, and they operate in a cycle substantially. So it starts with the love bombing phase, where there is this like gift showering, saying all of the words that you've always wanted to hear, being the perfect possible, picture of friend, partner, whatever that they can be. And then when they know that they've got you, then they start the second phase, which is called the devaluation phase. And that's where there's a little bit of distance creating there. And then all of a sudden, you're not the only thing for them anymore. Or maybe you're not, maybe 3 months before they said to you how perfect you are. And then maybe now they're making a joke and disguising it as, they're insulting you and telling you that it's a joke, basically. This sort of stuff, maybe they are putting some like comments that are, if said by somebody else, you would think that it was a nasty comment, but they've love bombed you so much in phase one of this cycle that you want to believe them, that you're like, so of course they're joking. They're not this person. They're not the person that this is not the person that they showed me who they are. So clearly they're joking, right?
Yeah.
So that's the second phase. And then in the third phase of the cycle, we have the discard. And that's where, that's it. They like you don't mean anything to them anymore, but it doesn't mean that they break up with you. It doesn't mean that they, get you out of their lives.
Yeah, they don't.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It just means that they keep you there, and they are not this kind of ideal, Prince Charming or partner or friend that you thought that they were. And you start raising questions and being like, oh, but why isn't this, you used to be like this. Why are you not like this anymore? And they start telling you, oh, come on, this is in your head. What have your friends been telling you? What have you been thinking? Like, what books have you been watching? What movies have you been watching? This is all
gaslighting, basically. Gaslighting.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And they discard you. And then when you become a little bit more serious about, well, I'm not happy with this, and they see that you're gonna do something about it, then they start the love bombing again. Right? So they go back to being the ideal person for as long as you need to be convinced, and then it starts again, phase 2, phase 3, and everything. And the really scary thing about this is that there is absolutely no time scale for any of the phases, and it is not a thing that is predictable. Sometimes it lasts years, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. There is just no way of understanding, how it doesn't have a proper time scale. It really doesn't.
And presumably the narcissist who is doing this, going through these phases, has no sort of conscious awareness of what they're doing. They're not going, right, I'm going into phase 1 now. They're not consciously aware that they're behaving like this. Am I right?
So and so, meaning that they know that if you're complaining and they give you that love bombing, they know that your behavior will change.
Yeah.
very conscious. They might not be
Yeah.
conscious of love bombing, like in those terms, like as we're describing it now, but they know that if they adopt a certain behavior, it will change your reaction to them and they will get what they want from you. So it's very conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get it. I see. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, they're going along going, well, I'm a narcissist, so today I'm going to behave like this. And that's not necessarily how it goes, but it's just that manipulative way of behaving in a relationship that's going to, yeah, create that unsavory dynamic, which is so destroying. It's so, and I mean, it brings us very neatly back around to where you started, where you say your work is like bringing people back to all their authentic selves, because when somebody treats you like that, you basically don't know which end is what. You don't know left from right, up from down. You complete, so the effects of the energetic, you know, let's move on to the energetic effects, but the initial effects of that kind of abuse, of being in that kind of toxic relationship where you're being emotionally manipulated, yeah, I mean, I guess what are they apart from being utterly confused and dazzled by confusion and not knowing where to go?
Well, it's yes, that, and I do believe it's a lot deeper than what people would think, because first of all, if you're in a cycle like that, we are talking everyday manipulation, little by little by little. So don't think that this is a lot of people might be out there and think like, oh, come on, that's not going to happen to me because I would know, I would realize. You wouldn't, because it's so subtle. Every single day, it's like hammering, the nail every day for X amount of time in a way that it's like, when we say in personal development that baby steps give you great results, that's the same way, but in a toxic way. It's literally the same thing. It's like they do the little manipulation constant every single day. Then in the space of a year, you don't recognize who you are, literally. And first of all, it having a cycle makes your brain think that love makes your brain associate love with the cycle of toxicity. So if I behave a certain way, I get the nice person, right? So it makes your brain think that. It doesn't make your brain go, well, you deserve love regardless. It also makes your brain think that it's normal in a relationship to have ups and downs. It is not, right? A balanced relationship is one that it's okay. There can be hardship, but the hardship isn't a struggle to overcome. This is what people miss. There can be hardship, but you can be solid and healthy in the way that you go through that hardship. If it feels like a constant up and down and like a constant struggle, that's not a healthy relationship. That's not a normal up and down that happens to everybody. And I say this because for a very long time, I was in a relationship like that for 15 years. And I thought that that was normal.
Yeah, but that's what society's told us, I mean, my own mother sort of says, oh, darling, relationships, you have your good days and your bad days and things go up and down. And that's, that is kind of what society shows us. And that's what, movies and television programs and romance novels and, everything, all show us that that's normal. I mean, you just have to look at Mr. Darcy's behavior, dreadful, sort of toxic behavior of this great romantic hero that everyone is like, oh, hot to flatter. No, it's dreadful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so on a, I mean,
I add something?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to add something because you said the effects of it. And so it does that to your brain so that it makes you associate love and a relationship with something very unstable and in a concept that is very toxic, but also what it does to you because of all the gaslighting that you had and not getting your reality validated, it makes you think that the way you are is wrong. Right? So that's where it happens. That's where the separation inside of you happens, because what has happened there, you have trusted somebody whose only purpose was to find out your vulnerabilities and then use them against you. So therefore, they are making you think that you're wrong, that the way that you're made is wrong. And because you trusted them, and because you've learned from society that you should trust the person that you love all the time, that if you're, they are your, your one or whatever, then you trust their word more than you trust your own feelings and your own intuition. And that's where the crack happens.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's going to be the beginning of the energetic shift within a person to not be able to. And when that energetic shift happens, it's a lot of work to kind of to get it back in place. When you lose, you lose a part of yourself when you lose track of that, when it's that that little bit that is you gets covered over by so much other stuff and beliefs and worries and just constant sort of dealing with things on a surface level. It's just like, I've just got to get through this hour, this day, this week, and then you don't have time to dive deep and actually ask yourself, what the hell is it that I actually want? What am I getting out of this that's not just a load of pain in the backside. So we are, you and I, in the business of trying to help people recognize themselves, come back to themselves, sit squarely in the driving seat of their own lives, being truthful. So what are your methods? How do you work? What's your tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really don't believe in curing the symptoms. No. I believe in eradicating the root cause. Literally, let's take it all out. Let's just get it out of the ground and just burn it. Yeah, this is literally like my concept and how I approach it, because we have a lot of, for example, anxiety. Anxiety can be one of the symptoms that shows up as a result of a toxic relationship, because when you don't trust yourself, you have this different signals coming, from your body and from your mind. And that gives you that high level of stress, high level of anxiety, because you're so disconnected from yourself that you are constantly questioning whether you're doing the right thing or not. And it can, present in the form of anxiety. So clearly anxiety is a symptom of something, but we are so used to approach it as the cause of something, to see anxiety as a problem. Anxiety is not a problem whatsoever. Anxiety is a symptom of something that has happened, right?
Yeah.
So when people come to me with, I don't feel like myself, so many of my clients, I've had this in variations of this, but I stand in a shop and I have no clue what I like. I do not know whether it's food, clothes, anything. I just stand there and I am so overwhelmed because I cannot decide what it is that I want to get. And how the heck is somebody supposed to know that might be connected to the fact that they're living in a toxic relationship, or maybe they have experienced toxic relationships growing up or in the past or whatever, right? So it can be very random, but anything that doesn't make you feel empowered within yourself, if you're not feeling that unshakable self, if you're not feeling that, grounded and yes, this might be risky, but I know within me that that's what I need to do, right? If there's that ounce of self-doubt, shame, guilt, stress, anxiety, those feelings that make feel life like it's a struggle, that's a symptom. That's a symptom of something. That's a symptom, that's a signal that there's a journey that's waiting for you. And if you get to understand what the root cause of these things is, which is very likely to do with relationships that you have experienced throughout your life, then you've got to go and have a look at it and eradicate it and get to experience life. Because this is my concept. Life is supposed to be easy. Life is supposed to be effortless. We have been fed this concept where life is hard. Like, can I swear?
Yes.
Bullshit. Like, that's complete and utter bullshit. How we've been sold this concept that relationships have to be complicated because it's normal, that life has to be complicated because that's the normality. That is bullshit. That's somebody that wants you to feel like you're incomplete, so you're going to keep watching the movies and keep buying something else to make yourself feel better, right? That's bullshit. That's not what it is.
And that's what makes a lot of people a lot of money. Let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes a large portion of the world go round. You know, that insecurity. Oh no, I need to get this new primer or this new mascara or this new outfit. Yeah, a new handbag. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And life isn't about that. Like, life is not supposed to be a struggle. Life is supposed to be easy. It gets to be easy. And as I said earlier, like, if it's not, if you right now think that life is hard and that there's struggle, please reach out to, sorry, my glass. Please reach out, like, to someone, because that's not the way. Like, you can experience an easy life. Sorry, so got sidetracked. But yes, method is, let's talk about your story. Tell me why you're here. What is it that you're experiencing in your life that is not making you feel like life is easy? And then let's go and take a look at that root cause. Be willing to go deeper together. I'm not going to leave you there. I'm going to be there with you every single step of the way. And once we get to the root cause, then we teach the brain something different. We will teach the brain, we get to the root cause because it's all about the brain, right? So the brain has been taught that something works in a certain way. So the brain has been taught somewhere, somehow in our history, that relationships are complicated and you're supposed to be walking on eggshells when you have an argument, right? Example. Why is that? Where did you learn that? What did you see that made you think that that's the way? Because that's not effortless. That sounds like a great effort and struggle, right? So where does that come from? When we find where it is that it comes from, then we start teaching the brain a different way, and you choose which way is convenient for you to think and to experience life effortlessly. And then together we teach the brain a different way of going until you are on a path that feels effortless, that feels calm, that feels like there's no stress, where anxiety is actually there as a function of the brain when there's danger, rather than being like your normal thing, right? Because anxiety is a function of the brain, thank God, because otherwise there's a lion running towards you and you're dead because you don't get the anxiety.
Yeah, but I mean, anxiety is hormonal to a great extent, isn't it? Because it's the cortisol, it's the adrenal system. I think from where I'm sitting looking at all of this work in terms of what I use as my sort of coping mechanism, if you like, the chakra system, which are the energy centers which hold all the various different parts of you. The energy of around, let's say anxiety as a symptom, is held, it's held down here in your belly, in your base. It's a fundamental, basic kind of survival mode. And yes, of course, your brain is involved in all of this, but it becomes a kind of almost deeper seated than that. And eking that out and trying to understand. And of course, you need to use your brain to wrap your head around this. Yeah. And these, it's like doing a jigsaw, you've got all these pieces, but when that piece slots in, it's like, well, look, it's obvious. And of course, and I can see where that came from, that finding the root of your, like you say, of where these, to use your example, treading on eggshells, where did that come from? Was it valid? And all of those sort of things is super important. So when you're working with somebody, because I know am I right in thinking you use astrology a fair amount and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I use the
and what other things,
Yeah, so I do believe that that's a very much of an integral part to it, and I love working with the brain, but I also think that there is an element of soul discovery involved as well. So with my one-to-one clients, I do a full birth chart at the beginning of our birth chart reading, at the beginning of our journey together, to understand, like, what was happening, what was the energy like at the moment where you were born, and what are those traits that you have within you that maybe you don't feel confident about, but it shows that you're good with that. But maybe the reason why you don't feel confident about it is because stuff that's been said to you. Maybe you've been bullied about something that you really loved and you really felt pushed towards, and then you stopped doing it because of what somebody else said. And that's not right. Because if you were made that way to enjoy that, for that to be your purpose, for those to be your things, then why would you let somebody else's conditioning stop you from feeling? And also, the more you live closer to that, the more effortless it is, isn't it? We have so much energy available outside of us as well, right? And I find it personally so it supports the journey so much. And also because in some of the, each planet has a meaning and an influence on us, and some of those influences and meanings are sometimes parts of our personality that we're not really okay with. And so it's really good to go and see and be like, but this is part of you, why fight it? Right? What's a way that you can feel okay with this and stop fighting yourself? And just be like, it's me, I'm just going to embrace it, why?
And even somebody who doesn't necessarily subscribe to astrology as a thing, because there are plenty of people out there who don't take notice of it. If you were to say to me, listen, Rosanna, I feel like your strength is here in this area, and that resonates with me, whether I believe in astrology or not, because it's informed you, and that's enough. And if it rings true for me, then that's all that matters, frankly. Whether it's Saturn or Jupiter, I don't really mind. If you're telling me that I'm a warrior and I feel, hell yeah, I'm a bloody warrior, then you're going to go with it, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. This is what I say, like, astrology is a tool. It's there. It's something that you can use to understand. I'm a huge, this is the way I see it. We are in a universe, which is, by the way, we discovered yesterday. There's so much, like, how crazy was that? Right? Absolutely mind blowing. So we are in a universe where there's all this stuff going together. And if you think about it, even just our solar system, we have X amount of planets circling around the sun. And if one of those planets, only one out of all the ones that are circling, if one slows down, changes the course, or starts spinning in a different way or whatever, it's all going to change. Literally everything will change, right? So if that so much of a micro movement can have this massive influence on a whole solar system, why do you think that it shouldn't have an influence on us? Like, to me, I find it, to be honest, one of the most logical things in the world. Like, of course, we are all part of it's like think about a bicycle. Like, if you take parts away of the bicycle, you're not going to be able to cycle, right? It's not going to work. Why would you think that this is any different? It's a system,
Yeah,
It's
so, I mean,
system.
it speaks very much to the sort of connection that we, universal connection that we have, that, that crown chakra thing is that we are, and the very fundamental idea of oneness, that we are all one, that everything is one, we all share everything, we are one, animals, insects, flies, fish, whatever, we are come from the same energy.
Yeah.
And we're all made up of stars, we're material of the stars. We are, yeah. So I'm not a huge I don't dislike astrology. I'm just never kind of got into it, but I'm totally happy to subscribe to the fact that it probably does have some kind of influence. I mean, I know the influence that the moon has on myself and on friends who, like, the moon is most definitely powerful, and can't argue with that. And so it just follows logically. So yeah, I'm just making my argument for the disbelievers amongst us.
The moon is something that I work with as well. Absolutely. Like as part of those birth charts, I offer a moon table for the person, which tells you exactly which moon throughout the year, the specific meaning that it has for you according to your own birth chart. Because when you use, these are energies that are very powerful and you don't even have to pay for. Like, they're there, right? They're just there for you. It's the most environmentally friendly thing that you can do is work with those kind of energies, right? They're just there, so powerful, there to support you. And once you unlock the code, once you unlock what it means, that makes your life even more effortless, because you know that for yourself, who are born this day, this moon is going to mean this. So maybe this is the right time to focus on this part of my life. Why would I want to do it at a time where it's just going to be a struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I too, with the guidance of somebody like you, I can see how incredibly valuable that would be. But I'm conscious of time, so I want to ask you a couple more questions. So my first question is, like, obviously astrology is one of your tools, but what else have you, what other kit bag things have you got in your, so for example, I'm going to give you an example. So a friend of mine, someone close to me, has recently just come out of a relationship, which was a serious relationship, and it turned out that he was highly narcissistic, and she's now beating herself up for, like, why didn't I see this coming? Why didn't I notice the red flags? Because they were there. And so I want to ask you to get a sort of two things, how to refine the faith in oneself, to trust the self. It's like I know she feels like she let herself down by having this relationship, which was a loving, wonderful relationship for a short minute, for a period of time. But so I'm interested to know, A, that, and B, what other tools you use around this kind of work that you do.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's really important to work with someone. I think it's really important because, especially when you have been in a toxic relationship with a narcissist, there's such a deep manipulation that goes on there, that if you have somebody help you understand how that works and validate a lot of stuff with you as well, that's going to really help you understand that none of that was your fault. Right. But I think that it's important to work with someone that understand what certain behaviors mean and what some words perhaps as well mean, or, certain dynamics as well. It can be very validating. And when our experience is validated, that's incredibly healing. And so, yeah, but please, to say to your friend, none of that was your fault. You could not have known. You could not have known. It can happen to literally anybody. So none of that was your fault. In terms of how I work, the work that I do is very tailored, because every person's story is different. And so I'm a certified coach. So I use coaching techniques. I use elements of neuro-linguistic programming as well, which is teaching the brain what we actually want it to do rather than what it's learned that might be not very healthy. I also, as we said, use elements of astrology, moon energy, and everything. But, you know, if somebody is like, nope, I don't want to know anything about astrology, okay, it's fine. We can still work it. We can still work it out. We can still work.
You'll still be there in the background going, what?
Yeah. And, you know, it's absolutely fine. Like, it's not, I won't not help you somebody because they might be skeptical towards, you know, astrology or this kind of work, because I think that once they get to see, you know, it's very empowering to be able to go like, oh, I see it and I want to take it on. Or maybe like, okay, I see it, but that's not for me. Those are very like empowering things to do, and they're perfectly fine. So whichever way, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. So yeah, so the work that I do is very tailored, depending on somebody's needs. I work with them 3, 6, or 12 months. And it also depends, you know, what sort of time they have available, on what kind of journey they want to embark on. Obviously, working with somebody for 12 months can have a, you know, very much of like a 360 degree change on your life. You know, 3 months, it can get you out of the woods and just, you know, put you in a place where you're feeling more confident within yourself and more like, okay, I have tools. I understood the dynamics and I have some tools. And for a 6 months journey, it's a deeper change than that. It might not be a 360, but it might be that significant areas of your life.
It's going to move your life for sure.
I saw women completely going for completely different careers after 6 months, and that wasn't one of their desires or one in their plans at the beginning of their journey, but they found so much confidence and so much authenticity, connection to their authenticity, that they were like, the heck am I doing here? This is not making me happy. Let me change. And I feel confident, and I know that I am capable to do that. So I've seen very different levels of transformation. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm now thinking that I'm really hopeless interviewer, because I should have asked this question like literally right at the beginning of our conversation. How did you get into this? How did you find this as your niche?
Well, that's my life experience. So I was really bullied a lot when I was a kid. I grew up with a controlling and narcissistic mom. Which I didn't find out that until a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then I was in a relationship with a narcissist for about 15 years.
Okay.
And it got me to a point where I was, I had high functioning anxiety. I had a high level of OCD. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. So you have like a certain amount of rituals that you'd have to do throughout the day. And I remember when I started working with a coach, I went for the OCD because I couldn't cope. Like, it was just like, I was like, I got to do something about it because this is taking over my life. And the first thing that she made me do was write down all the OCDs that I had. And I was so, it was such a wake up call because I counted over 40. Wow. And it was taking up so much of my day. And that was raveled like in anxiety, like that was tense, very tense time throughout the day, every day. And so I was experiencing all these sort of things, and but inside I always felt this thing as like, I cannot be wrong all the time. Like, why do I feel like I am wrong all the time? Like, that can't be right. I went to see her and started working on the OCD, and fast forward about 18 months, because OCD is not the easiest thing to tackle. Like, it takes time. It's completely achievable. You can get rid of it completely, and I did, but you have to be very patient with yourself. It's
you about to do the work. Yeah,
absolutely. And fast forward 18 months, and my OCDs were down to 20. And that gave me so much brain space that I was like, wow. Like, I was like, hang on a minute. I still have 20 OCDs here, but bloody hell, like, this is insane. So I started seeing my partner for who he was. And I started challenging him and say, you know, no, I don't think this is right, you know. And that's where he went down a bit heavier with like, no, it's all in your head. We always have ups and downs. And I started saying, but I don't think that's the way it should be. I don't think that you're supposed to have ups and downs. I think that it should be like a partnership, not a thing where we have an up, okay, then we have a down, then it's not, you know, that's not right. And I was ignored. I wanted to just work and do something. I asked for help to his family, completely ignored. And then it comes to January 2018, and I was like, I can't. I've got literally nothing left to give. So I left, and that was a huge, like, he did not stop harassing me for like 3 months straight. One moment I was the horrible person, the bitch, you ruined my life. The next text was, I take it all back, please come back, I love you. Like, it was literally like this. And it was so exhausting, like so exhausting.
Yeah.
But the moment I left, my OCD went down to 3. Literally the day I left.
Wow.
I didn't feel the need to have any rituals apart from like 3, which one of them, I can't remember 2 of them, but one of them was checking the door. Like, I had a ritual to check how many times I checked the doors and stuff. And I remember that being there. I can't remember the other 2 what they were. But the day I left, it completely dropped down to those. And then I lived on my own for a while. And when I found my balance, then I let it all go. And now I don't have anymore. But you see, and when I went to my coach 18 months earlier, she's like, why you're here? Why do you want to work? And I said, well, I have OCD and I can't cope. Like, I have so much anxiety. I don't know where it is. And the first question, she's like, okay, tell me about your relationships. Oh my God, thank God I have my husband. That's what I said to her. Thank God I have my husband. And 18 months later, I was like, what the heck? And I asked her and I said, did you see this coming? She's like, of course, but I can't tell you, can I? You have to go through your own process. You have to realize your own things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then I had such a change that I had people in my life being like, oh my God, that's like so inspiring. You know, I admire you. Like, it takes so much courage and stuff. I'm like, no, like, I just couldn't do it. That's not courage. I kept saying, like, I just got to a point where I couldn't do it. But I was seeing like the effect that I was having. And I was like, oh my God, if this is me and this is what's happening, imagine like if all of the women who are experiencing this had this kind of journey, like that would be amazing. Imagine the impact. So I was like, right, let me do it. And I decided to help you.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Well, I'm just I'm in awe and admiration of your story, and I think what you do is amazing, and your energy is brilliant. And I will I've taken an hour of your time, so we're gonna leave it there for now, which is a shame because I feel like I could talk to you for a long time. But I'll obviously put your website in the show notes and anything. But is there anything there that people, if you got like anything to offer people in terms of like a little resource, or is it just all there for just?
It's everything on the website, but there is a resource which is called it's a PDF. It's called How to Get Over a Narcissist for Good. So if you suspect that you might be in a toxic relationship, that's going to give you a little bit more of an insight, because I literally go through different kinds of red flags. I go through the narcissistic cycle in a bit more depth, like how does it work and how you might be feeling in each phase of the cycle.
Yeah.
Then it also tells you how to get out and what kind of options do you have. and what can you do, and is it okay to go cold turkey, or do I have to plan it? And it's entirely up to your personal situation. So and I explore different things. So I think if you're listening to this and you're asking yourself, who is that me, I think that resource can help you. I think it can really help you maybe gain some clarity on that. So definitely download it. It's completely free.
Brilliant. Okay. All right, Gloria, thank you. Thanks so much for today. It's been amazing.
Thank you. I honestly, I right back at you, because I would continue this conversation and talk to you for hours. There's such a beautiful energy. So thank you so much for having me. And I would love to absolutely come back whenever you want.
Yeah, that would be great.